Welcome to Our Next Existence by Katie and the Chorus. I'm Katie, former technology strategist turned reluctant spiritual medium, and I channel messages from the Chorus, a group of beings just beyond our sensory perceptions who are loving, expansive, and who greatly enjoy sharing their perspective of us. Join us each week as we share and discuss their ideas about humanity's existence, purpose, and future. Concepts you can draw from to accelerate your path, expand your perceptions, and ultimately step into the flow of the universe and your life. Welcome back, everybody. I just got this new shampoo on a whim because of a recommendation from a friend, and my hair smells amazing. What is in this stuff? I mean, probably a ton of toxins because I didn't look it up before I bought it. I just did it. Isn't it funny how like something new and simple suddenly makes you feel like new possibility? Like, what's my hair gonna do with this new product in it? It's like getting a new pair of shoes or a new anything. New notebooks. Oh, those are good. New pencils. New kitchen tools. That's a good one. New tools in general just makes you want to go do stuff with them. So it's been a few weeks since I've been able to sit down and record. And of course, it feels like it's been years and many hundreds of miles. And as I've been sitting here trying to warm up into whatever topic is going to come up this week, I'm reminded of all the times that the Chorus told me to keep going. It's like an echo of them that lives in my head. I can't tell you the number of times that I would be really thinking about a situation, trying to understand it, grappling with it, sometimes hating it, sometimes being so frustrated by it. And they would reflect to me in their loving way, their perception of the situation and what was being created and how I was doing it. Often, that answer was more than sufficient to give me a little breathing room between me and the topic. It sort of spread out the perspective a little bit, just enough that I was able to let go a little bit of the one view that was frustrated, angsty, thinking, scrutinizing. It opened me up to possibility. But sometimes, even when the Chorus sent down all their love, I was a stubborn and determined human to make it fit into something I understood clearly in that moment. And it was usually when I hit that point that the Chorus would return to one of their favorite lines, which was, "Keep going." It took me a long time to realize that really what they were saying is that they had reflected to me everything that they could reflect from their perspective of my situation. And that if they continued on in the conversation with me, really what they would be doing would be contributing to my limited perspective of it. They would be doubling down on the scrutiny, so to speak. And since, because of their distance from these frequencies, they are not resonant with that kind of thing, sort of the only thing left to say was a very loving, keep going. Meaning I had to step forward into the continued unfolding of whatever it was in order to continue to expand my clarity and my understanding of the situation. We've talked about this theme a few times over these episodes, how humans like to stop and look at things and break them apart and make them fit into existing definitions or connect them to existing manifestations. And as we've talked about so far this season in terms of the heart and some of those sensations that we feel, those are often representations of turning around. We look back, we reminisce, we try and understand it from something that already happened. It's very difficult for many of us to step forward into total unknown and total new, because that's not what we constructed this experience of limitation to do. So sometimes when they said, keep going, it was the last thing I wanted to do. In fact, it felt foolish at times and dangerous to continue forward without having the understanding, the security that my mind craved, and craved in a way that would make it make sense based on other things I had already lived or heard of. As many of you know from a few episodes ago, after the eclipse, my ability to channel the chorus changed. The mental connection that I had to them from that thinking place shifted. It ended in some ways. And over the ensuing weeks, as I've come to these places in my life where I would normally reach out to the chorus for their understanding and realize that it didn't really work that way anymore, there was this echo in my head of keep going. And it was easier than it had been years ago to do that. In fact, I'm still sort of floored that I was able to just record an episode talking about how I sort of lost the chorus connection, and then how I've been able to record every episode since. I don't know how I kept going forward, to be honest, because there was no thought process involved. You just do it. Something in my heart felt like I could, and I'm pretty sure that those muscles were built over, well, nearly 9 years of many of these crossroads and the many thousands of times that the chorus would remind me that what I was looking for was ahead of me. It's not until you hang out with beings like this who continually tell you to keep going that you realize how much you stopped. At times, I wonder now what other civilizations are like who don't have this stopping motion. What is it like to be part of a group of beings or people that continually move forward? It's a type of existence that I can only marvel at, and also one that I think often we are moving towards. It was really validating after I posted that episode about losing the chorus, so to speak, that many of you commented on our YouTube channel or sent me messages through the site that you felt that the chorus and I had merged. This was really interesting to me because even though I couldn't explain it, I felt that way too. And I was a little bit hesitant to admit that to myself because it almost felt self-congratulatory. Like, oh, hey, these higher beings that I hung out with are now just like merged in me. You know, it felt a little bit like you're so full of yourself. But it did feel like that direction had sort of merged with my direction. And so it's interesting, isn't it? That if we think about it in a static kind of paradigm, where I'm standing still and the chorus merges into me, that basically I just became, I don't know, a chorus human. It just must be a new species, must be a new genre of human, right? It's a new definition because it's these two things that have to sort of smash into each other, mush into each other in order to be that new thing. But if you keep the entire scenario in motion, then really what you could consider happened is that if I, after all these years, have continued to move forward somehow, some way, despite all of my mind's efforts to stop and analyze, or to stay in that comfortable place in my life, or to stay in that part of that comfort zone, or to just sit and ride the wave that I finally found with maybe even the first book or the first season. If all these places that I otherwise would have stopped, I kept going, then you might say that I reached a point of forward motion that was different for my life, or maybe for even the corner of the beliefs that I'm in. A type of forward motion that might match a little more the type of forward motion that the chorus is in. It was just, I think, a couple nights ago that the chorus came in and was finally able to reflect some of this understanding to me, which told me that I had finally reached a place of being able to potentially understand it. And they suggested that, yes, if you look at the mind directionally speaking, as we've already talked about a little bit this season, the mind looks backward. I think we mentioned this in an episode in season 2, in which I was walking on the beach with the chorus, thinking about my to-do list, thinking about things. And they pointed out that, yes, the mind often thinks about things it can't do. Now, I remember taking this a little personally and being like, what do you mean I can't get all this done? But what they meant was that the mind will often think about what it can't do in that moment. I was walking on the beach. I wasn't at the grocery store, and yet I was running the grocery list through my head. It's a type of way that the mind takes us out of the present moment. The present moment being where choice, possibility, and flowing energy all exist. By taking us out of the present moment into a construct of what needs to be done, we are energizing and reinforcing the experience of things that need to be done. Very similarly, we talked about earlier in this season how the mind will often turn around for answers. So when we're trying to understand something, the mind will often try to compare it to manifestations that have already manifested. Experiences that you have already had, things in your environment that you have already come into contact with. This turning around is practically definitive of the human species. It is unlikely that a human will look forward in terms of trying to understand something, because the forward motion is so open and unknown to us as to be practically useless to a human mind. If we want to understand something, we connect it into our context, and our context is based upon things that have already come to pass. So a very oversimplified way of saying it is that the mind turns around. Energy, however, energetic flow, moves forward. Now, as we've discussed in this season, our energetic compass, so to speak, is what we would call the human heart. It is the way we feel emotion and feel situations. Now, at this juncture, the distinctions between what the heart feels and what the gut feels and what some other parts of us feel are all a little poorly defined. And that's because it is new, and therefore the nuances of these different systems are still becoming clear to us. So let's just allow for the lump of sensations right now. And these sensations that come through to us from things or places or aspects of ourselves that are different than the thinking mind are what we might call energetic perception. Energetic perception is a present moment perception, and that is typically moving forward into the energy that is flowing into that present moment. So the chorus, very lovingly the other night, was able to come through my heart. And I had been experiencing this a little bit more over the previous weeks. It always felt like they were still sort of hanging around, even after the eclipse. I could feel their love. I could feel their presence, but I couldn't think about questions anymore, and I couldn't connect in that way to talk to them about things I was thinking about. In fact, I was pretty stunned a couple weeks ago when I was able to channel them and write things down. And I even asked them, I said, isn't this a mental activity? And as usual, they pointed to the fact that there are so few manifestations in our five senses reality that the energetic underpinnings can be very different. And therefore they said you can write things down from the heart, you can write things down from the mind. The writing is not necessarily definitive of the type of expression of energy that you are making. It can be writing from many different perspectives or many different energetic vantage points. Not sure that I totally understood that at the moment they told me that, but I was pretty thrilled that I was able to write stuff down from them again Even though I recognized as I wrote it down, it was not satisfying to my mind. The things that they were saying seemed to make no logical sense. It did not address the questions that I was grappling with. It did not address the things I was trying to understand. Now, at the same time, the heart part of me, the energetic part of me, felt completely satisfied, felt buoyant, felt propelled, felt connected, and even strengthened. This was satisfying enough for me that I recognized there was still value in the words in some ways, even if I couldn't mentally understand them. I would finish writing them, close my journal, and move forward. And I would find that days later, I would come back to what I had written, and it would have started to make sense to my mind based on what had happened in the ensuing time period after which I had written the things down. Now, this was very strange to me because this is how channeling started for me. I thought I was nuts. I would ask my questions, I would write it down, and I would come back, read the answers, and then scrutinize them, basically. I would sit there and think, could I have come up with that answer? Was that a good answer? Etc. Only this time when I came back, it was like my heart was already thrilled with the words, and my mind was slowly oozing into an understanding of what they said without judgment. It was sort of like does it make sense yet? Yeah, it's starting to. Does it make sense yet? Oh, yeah, it does a little more. Does it make sense yet? Holy shit, I understand what they meant. After a few experiences of this new kind of heart-based channeling, the Course was able to reflect to me basically this understanding that I'm describing now, which is that if you think about it directionally speaking, my forward direction, my energetic forward direction had finally, in some ways, merged with the forward direction of the chorus. Therefore, they were now meeting me on those frequencies of net new and total unknown in the energetic presence of the moment, whereby my mind was kind of the afterthought. Rather than me starting with brain-based questions and making it make sense to the mind and then feeling better from that answer, I was starting with a forward-looking, energetic sense of them that created then a manifestation that later in time my mind would be able to absorb and understand. I came to them, I think last night, with a set of questions that were really plaguing me. I had just come back from a sort of grid working, energetic type of trip. The re-entry into my normal day-to-day life was a little bumpy. I was a little cranky. I wanted to be a hermit again. And from that place, I came up with a list of questions. And more directly than ever, they sort of reflected back to me that I was heading in the wrong direction. They didn't even entertain my mind-based questions. They simply said, "You're going backwards." Specifically, they said, the mind will look in the direction of its limitation, meaning the mind-based questions that I had chosen would activate in some ways the limitation because I was coming at it from a place of limitation based on mental scrutiny. And then they said something really interesting. They said those questions are of a distance and they will create, therefore, a distance. So if you think about the way the mind can generate limitation, it creates these solutions that are incomplete. It creates more of the energy that it was coming from. If you think about that as a distance between you and the optimal answer, perhaps, that would give you the greatest clarity, mind-based scrutiny will sort of bump out that finish line because it's resonant with an energy of, well, not completely understanding. Now, if you contrast that with a heart-based, energetic, flowing place, what will often happen is that very different questions will come up in that present moment, and very different answers will be given to you. Those answers will often close the distance between what it is that you are sensing in the present moment and what it is that you are desiring or moving towards. Remember, desire is a sense of energetic direction. You desire it because you are already moving towards it. If you mentally scrutinize the desire or the situation, that scrutiny is resonant with the lack, and therefore the answers or the next action will somehow reactivate that lack, as we all know from the law of attraction. So it went a little something like this. I'm so frustrated. Chorus, why did this happen last year? I feel like it connects to something that's happening in this timeline now, but I don't understand it and it keeps bothering me. And the chorus says something like, hello, beloved. And then say something to the effect of, you're looking backwards. Now I say, but are all historical questions looking backwards? And they say, no, they're not. If a historical question bubbles up in the present moment presence of an open heart, then it is connective. But right now, you are looking backwards to understand something that you are feeling in this moment. And then they make me sort of feel more of what I don't really want to feel and come into my body and drop into my heart and sit with it. It's kind of uncomfortable, but I also kind of get it at this point. And then I realized that I have a different question. And that question is completely unrelated. But that question helps me to feel like I could go forward. And then I think, maybe I could record something. Oh, maybe I'll go reply to that email. Oh, I bet I could go write that thing right now. None of those things addressed the original mental question. But instead, it gives me an opportunity, a place to open back up to the chorus again and feel more of their loving presence. And in so doing, I had a thought about a thing that I had never thought to ask them before. And wouldn't you know it, but this new thing had more to do with who I am and what my path is and why this has all been going on. Which, I realized, was really the thing that I had been wanting to understand through that original historical question. But I was so ready to attack the mystery of the past that I didn't understand what I was starting to see about myself in that present moment. So here's what I'd like to suggest. You may think that the answer that you're grappling to find is related to something out there. A war-torn situation, a banking crisis, challenging relationships or family dynamics, bad health news, or the simple frustrations of a stressful day, a stressful trip, a broken down car, or too much that needs to be done. You may think about these things and think about the ways to solve them. And that is the way that we existed and survived in this reality based on the 5 senses alone for a very long time. But you would not be listening to this episode of this podcast if you were not already deeply in touch with energetic aspects of yourself, which feel a great deal more than the mind is able to perceive on its own. If you are looking at any of these situations and trying to understand it from where you have been, whether that be in this lifetime or others, there's a very good chance that you are looking backwards. You are sifting through the sands of this reality and this mental experience in order to create for yourself a new clarity. And that new clarity will come to you effervescently, easily, readily when you step into your energetic presence in this moment. It's about something new that you are starting to feel. And in that feeling of that thing, irregardless of any of the chaos that's going on around you that your mind wants to think about and resolve, you will find a next level understanding and perception of everything that you are and everything that you are capable of. It will move you in a different direction than all of those problems into a new sense of what you can create, connect, and build. When you feel the lift of a new idea, of a memory that you haven't contemplated in years, of a curiosity about something that you recently interacted with or saw, when you feel this levity step into the presence with you, almost like a power returning into your soul, you will know that you are moving in the direction of what is new and possible. And if you don't feel like you mentally understand anything I just said, but somehow feel it in your heart, then you're right on track. And if you still feel a little confused, well, the answer's very simple. Keep going. We love you infinitely. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you found these messages to be helpful. May they accelerate you on your path wherever you'd like it to go. For more information on the books which correspond to these podcast seasons, our podcast, live events, or how to get in touch with us, visit katieandthechorus.com. Thanks again. See you next time.